This week's episode is sponsored by the Brilliant Futures Institute.
What we put on is the last piece of our presentation. So the fundamentals of how do you think about yourself? Are you a positive individual? Do you care about other people? Those things come before you dress for your day. How you're perceived, how you're treated is a huge payoff. And you receive the best seats. You get the free drinks. You get the fine treatment. People are just missing out.
Welcome to the Preeminence Podcast.
You cannot be a courageous leader if you're not vulnerable.
Your legacy is every life you've touched.
The only thing that changes our life long term is when we raise our standards.
And now is the time to take risk.
The way it's always been done isn't necessarily the way it should be done.
What is your dream? What do you think 2050, 2100 is going to look like?
The most incredible sort of mystery, I think, is now the question of what comes next.
Stay hungry, stay foolish.
Welcome to the Preeminence Podcast. I'm your host, Matthew J. Peters. Visit preeminence.tv to learn more about how to create a preeminent presence for your business, organization, or personal brand. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, SoundCloud, or just ask Alexa to play the Preeminence Podcast. Today, our guest is fashion designer Evan-Delaney. Evan was virtually born into the fashion industry. Raised by a professional violinist father and a mother who was a professional dancer, he was in a suit, attending concerts at the age of 3. Evan is artistic by nature, molded by the beauty evident in his household. Evan has worked for Chanel, Calvin-Klein, and YSL. He started his business at the young age of 19 and has nearly 3 decades of experience with an ever-evolving knowledge of the industry. In addition to his private clientele, he has worked for international textile company Dormé, based in Paris. After his time at Dormé, Evan worked for Neiman Marcus as a made-to-measure specialist for Zegna, before moving on to work for international fabric company Skabal. Since founding his company, Evan has authored several books on grooming and men's fashion. Thank you so much, Evan, for being on the Preeminence Podcast. My first question for you is, when did you first become interested in fashion and design?
Thank you, Matthew, for having me. My story starts probably when I was born, to be honest. We were a family that was raised around the arts. My dad was a musician, a professional musician. My dad was part of the Colorado Springs Chamber Orchestra. My mom taught dance at Colorado College. And so I was literally in a suit on the weekends when I was 3 years old. And so it was probably not a conscious decision that it was something I wanted to do, but it was definitely the beginnings of my interest in clothing. So that's probably the early phases.
And how did that develop? What happened next?
Literally, I've been in a suit my whole life. And clothing has, especially custom clothing, has this artistic side of it that really is much like all the arts. It has its beauty. It's got its color, its flow. So I think if you are raised around those intangibles of the arts, I think it's an easy transition into clothing. And so I always had interest in it. And I had a job in high school, actually, working for Chanel, Yves Saint Laurent, and Calvin Klein as a rotator. And I used to spray cologne on people in the mall. And I was 16 years old doing that. So I guess that was the closest thing to fashion I could get to. And then I had a friend of mine in Phoenix who said, you need to come work with me because you can make a lot more money. So he was in the industry, and he was probably the one that physically introduced me into the logistics of the job I do now.
So when you were in that phase of your life, did you have a mentor that kind of walked you through all this, or do you kind of just go from one job to the next?
The gentleman that started me in the business introduced me to suppliers, to the physical logistics of the business. I think what made me different, even on the early phase, were the intangibles. So you can tell somebody how to measure, you could tell somebody how to go get a client or make cold calls, and that's what I did. He just set me loose and took a percentage of my business. So I literally went out there and learned everything, either for better or for worse, with mistakes, to be honest. So no, I didn't really have a mentor in this industry.
And so when you started in the business part of it, there's also this other part of it is the sense of design, the sense of beauty. And was that something that you feel you were born with, or is that something that people are born with, or is that something you developed?
I don't think you can develop it. I think the soft sides of that, meaning the things that touches the deepest parts of our soul, to look at something to be able to say, wow, that's extraordinary. I don't think you can teach that. I think it is what it is. And that's not to say don't get started in this business, or don't try and sell clothes, or don't design anything, or give up on your passion. But I think it's that really finite beauty. I don't think you can teach it. I think you either have it or you don't. And I don't know if I have it. but what I'm saying is I don't think you can train that precise, that touch.
I understand when you recognize beauty, and I could have 4 suits in front of me and I may not know how to design it, but I can recognize when things are quote unquote right, or they just like, now that makes sense. That is beautiful. That has refinement.
Exactly.
Now, when we're talking about clothes and how a man feels wearing the clothes, I remember hearing back when I was a teenager the phrase, the clothes make the man. Do you find that to be true at all, or do you see that not to be true? Clothing
complements the man. Being well dressed is really just a reflection of who a man is on the inside. And a gentleman's gonna want to be well dressed. A lot of times, you can put some clothes on a guy, but if he's a distasteful individual with no manners, he's self-consumed, he's just someone you don't want to be around, it's just a lipstick on a pig. I think the man is made before the clothing. I think the clothing complements the man.
Let's talk about how people perceive us. Now, if I'm an expert in my field, people are expecting me to dress a certain way at a certain level. And when people are commanding high fees as an expert, they are seen as having to dress at a certain level. Now, how do you feel that people are perceiving us by what we wear? Do you see that people perceive us by what we wear or not?
Yes, there's absolutely no question they do. We definitely live in this exceedingly visual society. Everything is what you see. We spend the majority of our days looking for something to affect our senses of sight, and that's how we consume things. So for people to completely ignore, specifically men, not women, for men to just ignore that aspect or to do it wrong, and we're talking about a professional level, what they wear, it is an absolute truth, whether people want to accept it or not. You are absolutely judged by how you look. And so if it's not done right, you've lost a spoke or two in the wheel, and you're missing out on a big piece of it.
When I was growing up, I remember watching movies that were shot in the 50s, 40s and 50s, and men dressed up and wore hats.
Yes.
Everywhere they went out, if it was a public event, if they're going out to a movie, if they're going out to eat or whatever, they dressed up.
Yes.
Do you feel that we changed as a society on what we thought about how we perceived ourselves and the standards for ourselves when we kind of shifted away from being out in the public and dressing up, like putting an effort into it instead of wearing a t-shirt and jeans with holes in them and dressing for comfort? I mean, what's your thought on that?
Clothing's a reflection of how we feel about ourselves. And it's possible that people, they don't have a high opinion of themselves. They don't hold themselves to a high standard. What we put on is the last piece of our presentation. So the fundamentals of how do you think about yourself? Are you a positive individual? Do you care about other people? Those things come before you dress for your day. So generationally, our standards have become lower and lower as time has gone on. And that can be seen in a lot of areas, but one of the most obvious is how people look. And I'll tell you, my son and I travel a lot for work, and I dress up always. And how you're perceived, how you're treated is a huge payoff. And you receive the best seats, you get the free drinks, you get the fine treatment, and people are just missing out. People look horrible today. We go through the airport, and I love it. I mean, people got to do what they got to do, but I mean, it's horrible because when you're talking about the 40s and 50s, people used to dress up. It was a privilege to go fly on a plane, and they would wear what you saw in those movies. They'd be in a suit. So it was this experience that you'd want to look good for, and now it's commonplace. I think it's a society. It's just a reflection of where we are.
That's really powerful because as a person who pursues preeminence and excellence and recognizes beauty in what some people would think are the mundane things. Like when I go for a walk in the morning, I'm just observing all the details.
Yeah.
And so when I see other people that observe details, I know that they're playing at this level that it's an honor and a respect to other people and to a creator, and they just they see life at another level. And at the same time, I know there's a lot of people who have money, they dress for comfort. They don't. It's like, I don't care what people think about how I'm dressed. I'm dressing for me.
Sure.
I can understand that, but at the same time, I like what you had said about it was a respect for self and respect for the others around you. And I never thought like respecting others around me by the way I'm dressed. And I think that's really powerful because I think that's something maybe we have lost.
Yes, I agree with you completely. There's no question about it.
You talked about there's really two sides. There's a fashion side and a traditional side. Can you talk about those two different sides?
In our industry, and I'm speaking primarily of men's, because women's is a whole nother ballgame, and it's a great ballgame. But women's clothing is really dominated by fashion. So fashion is this heavy swing in silhouettes, color, perception. Everything changes. So it's this road that is really driven by the entertainment industry, what we see. Pop culture has a big play in what's fashionable. It's media driven, and it's this beast that just keeps moving and changing. So if we were to bring that into the men's world, the fashion side of things is absolutely that way. Literally, you can have a Jay-Z wear a T-shirt and the next day it's sold out. Or whatever, whoever it is, whoever's hot at the moment, whoever goes to the Oscars and this or that, that's fashion. So it changes heavily. There's minimal consistency. It's driven. It's a fickle beast, and it's hard to chase. So for men, if you got the time to do that, if your work environment, social environment allows you that flexibility, then you can dress that way. And you can take pieces of the fashion world into the business world and make it work. And that really depends on your age. It also depends on your industry. But that's kind of that fashion world. The traditional world is heads of state, and we're talking about men specifically, heads of state, CFOs, CEOs, the C-suites, and iconic, powerful men. And they transcend time. They just look like men. They've always looked like men. They'll always look like men. So if you want to name some guys, any James Bond, that's fine. We'll roll with him because that's easy. You can conjure up a picture very quickly. A Cary Grant. U.S. presidents, there's been some in the past that have done the job right. That is a very traditional road, and you can identify traditional because it's generally non-offensive. You don't question it. There's nothing where you walk away from it thinking, I don't understand that. If you're a broader-based person, you've got to reach a bigger audience, and the stakes are high. Whatever those stakes are, if it's money, if it's influence, whatever it is, you're always better to go traditional route. If you're trying to reach a certain age group, let's say it's a younger age group, then little trickles of that fashion world is acceptable. But it's got to be done right, and it's also situational. So it's not a one color, one size fits all kind of deal. So it's a dynamic, moving target that you want to be aware of, especially when it's a big game.
And I see some of the things that you wear yourself and you put out on Instagram and Facebook. The style is very hip, but I think the cut is traditional. Is that correct in saying that? Or
Yeah. You know what? It is. I've got an addiction to clothing. And so when I make something, and mercifully I'm in this industry where I can pretty much wear whatever I want to because it's my business. But on my personal taste level, traditional cut, yes, I think you're right. I definitely lean towards hints of fashion. So I've got a trim silhouette right now with most of what I do. But you're right, the cut itself is more traditional. But our fabrications and colors are right on point. So they're very current.
In video production, I see people creating videos that I say you're either timeless or you're timely. And like the fashion is it comes and goes, but you're relevant right now. But then there's also that timeless that's a legacy. All those videos, like if I open up see your video 4 years from now and you have effects that people think are really cool right now, and you trick it out for stuff that's going on right now, you're going to be so dated when people see stuff years from now.
Love that.
And so I like how your colors are vibrant and they are attractive, but they're not distracting.
Thank you.
And so it complements you. And I really like that look. The cut is traditional. So you do have that traditional side where it's respect for very traditional people, but also you're showing that you have this, I think is a fun side.
Thank you.
So I think your clothes really fit your personality from what I know you, and I've been following you for the last 3 or 4 years.
Thank you.
And for men that are just starting out right now, they may not have had a session with you. What are some accessories they can start paying more attention to just have a little bit more of an edge and realize, well, if I do these little things, they may pay off in a big way?
There's one big one, and it's shoes. It's footwear. That's everything. If he wants to know where to start with your shoes. And there's a couple of reasons for that, not the least of which is women will look at your shoes first. So, and it's a detail thing. They want to know, is it current? Are they clean? Are they well maintained? It's rubbing the ground every other second. So if you're taking care of good shoes, you're going to be taking care of them. And really, guys that are decision makers, they'll be looking for those same things. Trust me, they know. With few exceptions. I mean, there's some industries where it is what it is, but most guys are going to look at your shoes. Having said that, if you're a sneaker guy, say, well, I just wear tennis shoes because I'm in this industry or I'm in this social circle. Okay, great. Go get a good pair of tennis shoes then. So don't slouch on your footwear. Make sure it's in line with your look. Make sure it's not out of date, especially with men's dress shoes. Don't go cheap because cheap looks cheap and cheap shines cheap. If you want to move into the grooming, a great haircut, pay for a good haircut, get good advice. Let's work on the grooming, guys. And I mean, you've got a great beard, looks sharp, looks nice, it's clean, it's part of your look. There's room for everything. We don't need to be robots. But if I were to advise a young man who's just getting started and he needs to invest in one or two things to get off the ground, footwear, good haircut, and make sure you're well groomed.
Can you expand on men having more attention to detail and how that'll pay off in, say, their business?
Sure. It's this balance. That's probably the first thing I would say is don't look too played. Don't look too staid. The perfect everything is just as bad as nothing. The perfectly done pocket square, the perfect tie, the perfect haircut. It's like, okay, please stop. You use too much. It's like, I don't know how much time you spent getting ready this morning, but you're probably up at 4 getting ready. So there is this balance with men, with gentlemen, where you want it to look natural. So to have everything completely dialed in, yes, you want that. Do you want it to look like everything is completely dialed in and perfect? You've got to have a piece in your attire, something that looks like it's just how you woke up. So if it's the tie, if it's whatever it is, just there's got to be a piece there where you've done it naturally and you haven't spent 60 years putting together every detail. So if you can figure that out, and you can figure that out by getting somebody good, hire a decent person, help me with this. Tell me, what do I need to do? So let's say you can get that all figured out. If we were to dial in details, yes. I can't stress grooming enough. People look, when they look at you, they're going to look at the top 2 feet of you. That's the first thing they're going to look at. I mean, they look at your face, your eyes. Get yourself together. Be a good person. Work on yourself. That's the detail. That's the key detail. So read the books, do the work, cut out whatever you got to cut out in your life. Learn to be whole as a human. That's number 1 detail. Number 2 detail is a whole myriad of them, but we'll start with grooming. White strips are cheap. Don't go too white, but white strips are cheap. Get the teeth together. You trim your nose hair. Hey, that's good. Let's keep it clean. Groom it up. Tighten it up. Make it look good. It's hard to describe when you're just talking together, but it's okay to be a man. So if you don't want a short haircut, cool. Rock the longer hair. But these are details, so just get it right.
If you want to be seen as the expert, if you want to be taken seriously,
yeah,
you don't wear the jeans and sandals to do a pitch for your business. So I think it's great that you're talking about the details outside of the clothes. And that really kind of brings me to this question of when you work with someone, it sounds like you go pretty deep.
We do.
What is a session with you? What does that look like?
For me, it's critical. It's absolutely critical for a good result. And it's not just one, it's multiple. So with my clients, the ones that trust me with their lives, really, I feel like it is guys that are on TV on a daily, weekly basis, those that are in front of board of directors. We get together frequently, and it could be by a text. It can be with phone call, but the initial session is long. I'll do my homework on somebody's career, and then we'll talk to them. How do you want to be perceived? What are your goals with your wardrobe? I have a referral network in most of our cities that will line them up with a good barber. Eyewear. The sessions go deep and they are personal, but it's not offensive. This is just good stuff. It's like it's going into a doctor and getting the right prescription. It's relief. And then what happens is after all this is compiled and we put together this person's life for them, it's transforming. People walk away and they are different people. And it really touches other avenues of their lives. And it's great to see. I absolutely love it. We'll take the time with the guy to get it right.
You touched on something here. I just want to give it a name. And I'd heard you say it in one of your videos. When people are wearing these clothes and it was designed for them, they feel confident. What are some of the things that you see a confident man doing differently than wearing these custom clothes made not only to fit their body, but to fit their personality? And what do you see happening in their lives?
True confidence makes a gentle man. They are not walking through life being demanding. They don't have to blow a horn in front of themselves. There is a quiet confidence that comes with being put together. It literally affects every aspect of their life. So their social life and their business life becomes calmer. And that's the result of that confidence, which is great. I mean, how do you tell somebody that? You really can't. And you can't really sell them on that. So it's just kind of this hidden gem that comes with being dressed properly. It's a calmness that they've literally got it under control.
One of my sales coaches said, people don't buy your product. They buy your confidence and your competence in helping them get the result they desire.
Yes, I love it.
They're buying your confidence.
So true.
If you come in dressed in a way that you feel confident, knowing you're put together, you're presentable at 100%, that is going to help forward the sale. And again, like what you had said, is the clothes don't necessarily make the man, but they present the man as he is on the inside.
Yes. It's not a cockiness. There's a difference. A quiet, confident man is just borderline irresistible.
That's amazing. I love that. So for the gentlemen listening right now who are ready to elevate their influence and their style, what would be the next perfect step in connecting with you?
We've got all our information on our website, and happy to help any way I can. There's a lot of people that we run across that we don't ever make clothes for one reason or another. It could be they're in a different city, or we might be a little out of their current price range from a product perspective. But I'm very liberal with my free advice, and I've also written a couple of books on dressing. It's rich with information.
So they can reach you at evan-delaney.com?
You got it.
Awesome. Guys who dress perfectly, to me, sometimes seem less trustworthy.
Correct. Yeah, you're right. Just to clarify, we're not doing a cookie cutter IBM robot. So I've got guys that never wear slacks. I've got guys that only wear jeans and sneakers. So you're right. It's not a unreasonably groomed, perfectly put together guy. There are very rare instances where that's what it needs to be. There's got to be a patina of life within their look that makes it real.
I agree with you, because one of the things I talk with people about when they're making their videos, we'll do these series of videos, and if it isn't perfect to them, they're like, wait, I got to start over.
Right.
And so I make them literally go from beginning to end without stopping. Wow. And if they make some little mistakes, we can capture it beautifully, but we have to capture them and their reality of who they are and the situation they're in right now as beautifully as possible.
Yes.
But to make them perfect and then the video to also be perfect, it's just like it's too much. Now they're unapproachable.
Exactly. So there's no transparency. I completely agree with you. That's incredibly well said.
Only a couple of guys I've met really that they have like this Ken doll sheen to them. And I don't even know how to relate to them, because it's like, I don't know how you did that or why you did that. It's like, do you do that every day? Is this a special occasion for you? If you're trying that hard to impress people in this type of situation, is it compensating for something, or is it
disingenuous?
The red flag goes up saying there's something odd here.
Yep. Agreed.
But I love the idea of the patina on it. You have this beautiful thing, but the patina actually adds to the caricature.
Yes.
If you wipe away all the character, now all you have is product.
Exactly.
Might as well be on a mannequin.
Exactly. It's not human. It's not relatable. There's not going to be a connection.
Thank you so much, Evan, for being on the Preeminence podcast. I want to make sure everybody can find you at evan-delaney.com. That's all for today. Thanks so much.
Matthew, thank you very much. You're a true gentleman. I appreciate knowing you, and thank you for your time.
Thank you for listening to the Preeminence Podcast. Subscribe to hear powerful interviews and insights each week automatically downloaded the moment they go live. Share this episode with your team, your friends, and post it on social media. Let us know your comments and suggestions for the show at m@ascend.net. That's the letter M at ASYND.net.